Hi everybody. Good. It's current afternoon already. Good afternoon. It's 12:20. Hi. Hello to everybody in the space here, in the physical space, and also those of you who are joining us from Zoom. My name is Iva Aminuddin. I'm here to talk to you about this topic of keeping it lit. My first slide is not very lit. I'm very sorry, but well, hopefully the sharing will be more lit than the first slide. So don't let the first impressions fool you. Okay. I think I have a clicker here. Okay. So my name is Iva Aminuddin. I'm the head of the Learning Futures Group at the Civil Service College, Singapore. Civil Service College is actually a learning and training institution for the Singapore Public Service. So we run learning and development initiatives, programs, leadership programs, and that sort of thing for public sector officers in the public service. I'm a mom of 2 sets of twin boys. They keep me very busy. They fill my life with joy and angst. I'm very happy to be escaping them this morning. They're with my husband today to be here with you. Now, what do I do in the... so I lead a team in CSC that looks into innovation and incubation of new learning methods for impactful learning experiences. So for a long time, we were talking about digital learning, virtual learning. It was very difficult to get it off the ground, and COVID really helped us because immediately it was like, there was no choice, and everybody had to go to digital. And actually, we were very happy that it could actually accelerate some of the stuff that we wanted to do as a team for the college. We also look into identifying future learning trends, develop prototypes and pilots, and support the organization to scale systematically. So that's kind of what I do. So a bit of futures thinking, a bit of innovation, a little bit of if you think about ourselves as entrepreneurs within an organization. Now, when I was growing up, my dream was to become a doctor. So I wanted to be an obstetrician. I loved children, I loved the thought of babies, and I wanted to help bring them into the world. And so when I was in secondary school, I already had this library of pregnancy and childbirth books, all the gory pictures, I used to pore over them. And when I shared my dream with my teachers, my friends, my family, they always were very encouraging. Say, oh yes, that's very good, right? Like parents like, oh, I'm not a doctor, right? My child wants to be a doctor, something I want to encourage. And they used to tell me, you'd make a great doctor, right? And I learned after some time that their assessment or this encouragement didn't come from their assessment of my capabilities in science, right? My scientific abilities. So I actually really struggled with chemistry, biology, physics. I would study very, very, very hard, and I would never get the grades that I was hoping for. But when they said that I would make a great doctor, I realized later they were talking about my bedside manner. So if you want a great doctor, a doctor that you like is somebody who listens to you, can communicate with you, understand where you are, empathize with you. But do you want that doctor who is that, and also a great surgeon, can give you really good medical advice, right? And maybe in my life, if I had become a doctor, I think I would have been a great GP type doctor, but maybe not have advanced very much, maybe not become a very skilled surgeon, because my general aptitude was not towards the sciences. So when I was in junior college, I struggled through triple science because I was like, no, I'm going to make this work. I want to be a doctor. And I got really bad grades, but the one topic or one subject that I didn't try hard at all but did really well was general paper, GP. And Rahayu would know we were in the debating circuits together. We did a lot of debating together. I did a lot of debating. And so when I got my A-level results, it was not good enough to get to medical school. I was not great at all, actually, but it could get me into arts and social science. And I thought, okay, why don't I do political science? Because I like reading the newspaper, I like keeping up with current affairs. And I did that through debating. And when I switched, it was like, suddenly I could breathe. Suddenly everything became easy for me. And I could actually find myself doing well without having to exert that kind of energy and effort that I used to when I was trying to do my chemistry, physics, and bio. So I think this goes back to what MP Nadia said about knowing yourself, self-awareness of your strengths, where you might not, yes, you can work very hard, and you can work hard, but it might be a little bit more difficult in thinking about what is it that you want to do in your life. When I graduated school, because I did really well in political science, I wanted to pursue the academic route, right? Very traditional mindsets last time. Become doctor, become engineer. You do well in social sciences, take a PhD, go for a PhD. But I did tell myself I wanted to get some work experience. And so I stepped out, worked in the public service for 2 years, went back to do my master's in IR, and at that time was applying for postdoctoral education in the US. When I got 1 or 2 acceptances and I was considering it, I realized, is this really what I want to do? When I thought about teaching, or being an academic, what appealed to me was this, right? Like the experience in a lecture theatre or in a classroom, helping mold young minds. But actually, I learned a bit more about the field of academia, that actually a lot of it has to do with research, writing, and research, and you work in small teams rather than big organizations, right? And I really miss the organizational life. And that's when I decided, actually, maybe I should not pursue this route. Instead, I wanted to pursue this love of harnessing passion in other people, helping them upskill and develop themselves, and that's how I found myself in learning and development. And at that point, same as Nadia, this job, learning futures or scenario planning work, was very new. You would not have this title in the public service at that time. So if I were to tell you that this was my dream, it was not, right? But it's something along the way that I picked up enough skills to allow me to seize the opportunity to take on this role. So, and to be honest, a lot of it is, there were a lot of questions about how do you know, what skills do you have, and all that. When I was asked to take on this leadership role, I was not asked because I had skills in futures thinking. I did not know learning analytics or data analytics, which is one of the things that my team does. But I was asked to take on this role based on my leadership skills, my ability to manage teams, facilitate conversations, harness ideas, and manage projects, which are skills that I would call core skills, and I'll tell you a bit more later about it. So that's my kind of story about myself, and I am, I would like to hear a little bit from you guys about, we've been talking a lot about futures. That's the stuff I'm working on now. I want to know how you feel about your future. So if you can go on Menti, there's a QR code there for you to scan. And there are 4 options. So choose one of the 4 options, right, that most resonates with you when you think about yourself and your future. I'm confident about my future prospects. I think I have everything figured out. Second option, I'm optimistic, but I'm somewhat concerned about some of the uncertainties that lie before me. Third, I'm worried. I'm not sure that I'm equipped for the future. And fourth, I'm not bothered. I live one day at a time. So you have this like chillaxing little, is that a unicorn? I'm not sure. Can I ask the team to help me switch to Menti? And you see the code is 6615540. Can you hit present, Nazreen? Thank you. Okay. I think you have to click again to see the results, maybe? Oh, no, go back. Oh, wow, people answering my second question already. Very good. Okay. So we have about 6 entries already. Those of you who are going in, you can go to menti.com and use the code 661115540. Okay, so there are more of us in the middle, a little bit of anxiety, some optimism, I'm glad, more optimistic, some worry, right? A little bit of stress. So there's stress and there's eustress, which is good stress, right? So this looks like it might be good stress to help us figure out what we want. Now, So this, given some of your thoughts about the future, let's explore this term, resilience. Okay, can we go back to the, oh no, let's just go to the next mentee. So if you continue to the mentee, what does resilience mean to you? So enduring the challenges you face, able to flick away your anxiety. I like that, like flick, like anxiety go away. Tuk. Just give a minute to hear some more. Getting back after falling, yeah. Pushing your limits and knowing your boundaries, venturing out of your comfort zone, perseverance, never giving up, powering through, keep going till the end, pushing on regardless of any obstacles. Continue to do something no matter how hard it is. Okay, great. Can I go back to the slide? Thanks everybody for, especially those of you from home who are providing your input. Okay. So I think a lot of you got it right? Resilience is about bouncing back, working through the effects of stress, negative emotions, to bounce back and thrive, right? So it's not just bounce back, but you actually do well. You are able to thrive. And resilience is an active and dynamic process. That means there's some of us who are born more resilient, with more grit. But it doesn't mean that you cannot develop your resilience, develop your grit. You can grow it, right? And that's the good news for us. Now, but you know, resilience actually is this kind of like, what does it mean beyond bouncing back? Tell me how to bounce back, Eva, right? Just telling me, bounce back, flick away. How is it helpful? Now, there's actually no single accepted set of components that describe resilience. But this guy, Stoversky, in 2012, identified these set of components that define potentially how resilient you can be. One is optimism, right? Those who tend to be optimistic, you see the glass always half full, you tend to be more resilient because you're more likely to see that actually it's okay, it's not so bad, right? It can be, you know, it could be worse, right? So that helps, optimism. Second is altruism. The most resilient amongst us tend to always be helping others when they need to relieve stress. So you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're thinking about others. You want to help others too, right? When you have that mindset, you tend to be more resilient because you're not just focusing on myself and how I feel, but you're channeling that into helping others. The third is moral compass. When people know what is right or what is wrong, or when they have strong values, it's easier for them or to be resilient, right? For example, if something bad happened to me, but I'm like, well, but this other person also, you know, deserved the job, not me, right? And I believe that, you know, my moral value is that I believe that it should be fair and just. Then if you have strong moral values, a moral compass, you are likely to be more resilient. Faith and spirituality helps. Well, it's not a required factor. That means if you are not religious, if you don't have a faith, doesn't mean you cannot be resilient. But when you have resilience, it helps. So like just now, Inshira said, right, variably with every challenge there's ease. That comes from a place of faith, right? This belief in something greater. That helps also resilience. Humor. When you can laugh about what's happening, that helps too, right? Because it's not so like heavy and strong for you. Having a role model helps, somebody that you can look to help you figure out the difficulties and challenges. Social support, also something that the, MP Rahayu said about social capital. When you have social support, if your family is there to help you along, right, it's okay, and encourage you, etc., you are more likely to feel more resilient. Facing fear. If you have a tendency to, leave your comfort zone, you're always willing to face your fear, right? If something scares me, I'm not going to shirk back, but I'm going to lean into the fear. That also is a characteristic of being resilient. And meaning and purpose in life is also important. When you have a goal that you're working towards, you're clear about that. This is my purpose here. I'm here to help others despite the challenges, and I need to still do that. I want to do that. That helps you be more resilient as well. And finally, training. Actually, you can learn how to be more resilient. you can train yourself to do so, right? So like in the military, if you see the SEAL training, all the like difficult training, they're trying to build resilience in their force that even when it's tough, you're in a hard situation, you can bounce back, you can try, right? So these are components of resilience. Now, when we think about economic resilience and relevance, and that's what we've been talking about today, right? What does that mean? Some of us might look into the future, and half of us feel that way. Look in the future and we feel quite uncertain, right, about the future because we don't know what to expect. And when we look at COVID this year, right, oh, I haven't been clicking, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so this was my look into the future and it's uncertain. And this is the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Like, encapsulates this fear and uncertainty. How do we know? Like when COVID happened, we thought, oh, the vaccines come out, then everything will come back to normal, right? The vaccines have come out, and things are not quite back to normal. Although, if you're optimistic and see the brighter side of things, if you saw today's Straits Times, you saw actually the job market is not doing too well, not doing too badly. She's on the uptick. It's not too bad, right? And many of us were surprised by COVID-19, right, as a pandemic. Some people say it was a black swan. Have you heard of this term, black swan? Black swan as an unpredictable event that you never think would happen. It was coined by Nicholas Taleb in his book, Black Swans, I think. Yeah. But do you think we should have, do you believe it was a black swan? Was it really unpredictable? Actually, many experts will say it was predictable. What did we have before COVID? We had SARS in Singapore, but more recently we had MERS, we had Ebola, right? And when I studied in the US for a while, there was Zika virus that affects newborn babies, right? Pandemics is not a new thing for our planet. And so actually it's not unexpected, right? And so even in the future, one of the things that we want to pay attention or remember that there are some things that we can look at, patterns, right? And we can study those to prepare and anticipate for the future. One of the things that even prior to COVID-19 was a trend, pattern, was, I keep scrolling one side and not the other, rapid technological change and disruption, right? That was happening before COVID. COVID only accelerated it, right? So even before COVID, our government was saying, smart nation, we need to digitalize. There were efforts to ask hawkers to digitalize, go to a no cash economy, right? But it was very, very difficult to get people to move. So COVID has just accelerated some of these trends. The other one is innovative and disruptive business models. If you think about Grab, right? Where you don't have to hire in the way like taxi companies used to hire a taxi driver full-time. Not full-time, but on a rental model. Grab was anytime you can drive. The way they incentivize was also very different. Airbnb is another innovative, disruptive model. So instead of starting a hotel chain, I just get community people to come on board and be my employees and provide homes for vacationers to go to. So this is one part, this is something that is already in our ecosystem. What happened 2 days ago? Say yesterday or 2 days, Facebook made an announcement. What was the announcement about? They changed their name to, anybody remember? Anyone? Meta. And Meta is short for the metaverse, right? So Facebook is going into the metaverse, which is basically your virtual reality version of life, right? And they're not the first company. They because they're so big and they've made this giant announcement, but actually a lot of companies are looking into developing their metaverse. And if you think about this trend, the metaverse is an expansion of this disruptive business model, rapid technological change, right? That is enabling these changes. There will be, we have to watch out for it because it will open up challenges and opportunities in the industries that we might be working in. If you're in advertising, you've got to think about advertising in the metaverse. What does that look like? Shopping in the metaverse, right, might be a different experience. Entertainment, how you enjoy your entertainment in the metaverse might be interesting. It's a very new development. It's important for us to be paying attention to it, regardless, I think, of which industry you are. It doesn't mean that you need to be in the tech industry to be paying attention to these things, right? So if you're in the social industry, doing social impact work, how will the metaverse influence the way we interact with humans, other humans and communities? And what are the needs there that will emerge for us that will need a solution, right, that we can provide, right? And that will give you a sense of what you should be paying attention to. New ways of working, reimagining how work is done. I think just the way we are meeting now on Zoom is an example of that. This is one thing that I wanted to talk about very quickly because we touched on it just now, which is shorter shelf life of acquired skills of experience. As technology becomes more disruptive and we change, right? Like today, this industry kind of moves out and there's a new industry, for example, then what's going to happen is your skills shelf life is going to be shorter, right? And what's more important is actually the core skills that you build. Just another, I'll skip this, but we didn't talk about this today, which is where are the opportunities for us? And will Singapore forever continue to remain economically competitive? Is this where you are going to get the best salary, the best job, and the best opportunities? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, right? And so it's important to pay attention to what's going on. Top 10 skills of 2025. If you look at it, actually look at it, active learning. This is from World Economic Forum. I flagged out the red ones: active learning and learning strategies, complex problem solving, critical thinking analysis, leadership and social influence, resilience, stress tolerance. Do these sound as like specialist skills? Actually, there's fewer of what I think would be specialist skills, right? Tech design and programming, analytical thinking and innovation. Yeah, what does it tell us about the world? It tells us that as you pivot, as industries change and shift, we will need to shift, right? We might need to pick up new skills, but there will be some skills that are critical and core. The group earlier used the word soft skills, but I prefer to use the word core skills because what it gives you is this impression that I'm building these core skills, then I can pivot and use these core skills depending on the industry or opportunity that comes up for me. If it's in analytics, then that is it. If it's in robotics, right, I need to pick up that specialized skills, but that core skill remains important. The same thing as AI or whatever it is. And if you look at our Skills Future SG curriculum, actually, it's thinking critically, interacting with others, and staying relevant, right? These are important. I drew a point around, arrow towards the red, which is global perspective. I think this is very unique and important for Singapore. One is because we're a small country with literally no domestic market, right? And somebody asked a question about entrepreneurial, remember earlier? And I would have responded, you need to think beyond Singapore as a market. So a few years ago, before COVID, I went to Jakarta and I visited Grab, Gojek, Block 71, which is an NUS entrepreneurial initiative. We also went to Bukalapak, Tokopedia. And if you think about the Indonesian market, it's huge. All these Indonesian graduates who went to the US, very, very bright, the brightest of the bright in Indonesia. Some of them who went to the US and the UK, and they used to stay there because that was where the economic opportunities were. You know, they're all back in Jakarta and working in these startups because the potential growth of these startups in Indonesia, the huge, country it is huge, it's tremendous. And when I saw the NUS grads there, right, starting up their startups at Block 71, which is a NUS-funded, government-funded initiative, one of the things I realized is that in Singapore, we don't understand the needs of the region. So if you think about some of the Indonesians who live there, they know what is the challenges that the rural people face. And they can provide ideas for innovative ideas to meet those needs, right, that we all don't understand because we don't live in that area. And if you can sell that idea in Indonesia, guess what? The rest of the region, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, all face similar situation because they're in the same pace of development, right? The same level of development. And so that's why you're seeing Gojek going to Vietnam, etc., right? And so one of the things that I did want to say was, one, it's very important for us in Singapore to maintain a global perspective. That means you cannot just be looking at what's going on in Singapore. And the digital economy and digitalization allows us to escape our geography. You can find opportunities anywhere and everywhere, right? Remote working is going to be a thing. It is already a thing. But one of the things in Singapore I feel is we're not paying more attention to our neighbors, ASEAN. This is where the growth is going to be. It was before COVID. Jakarta was growing like 6% GDP year on year before COVID hit. And once there is recovery, you will see that this is where the opportunities are, not in America, not in Europe, which is where we all feel is if we wanted to work overseas, like maybe these other countries. But actually, if you ask me if you were to look for an internship somewhere, I would say go ASEAN. Jakarta, Indonesia is amazing. If you go there, the dynamism in the tech side is crazy. It's really exciting. Okay, last point. And I know you're all tired. We're already almost 1 o'clock. I'm so sorry to keep you behind. But so finally, it's about growth. One thing that I want to help you understand is very important in terms of growth. So you're starting off and you'll start into your jobs. I'm sure you'll have a good few years. You'll get to this point where you will realize, there's some opportunities coming up, right, that I'm seeing because you're paying attention to the global landscape, you're seeing what the industries is coming out and all that. And maybe you're in a managerial position, drawing some good pay, and you're thinking, do I want to make a switch? Should I make a switch? Because making a switch means usually taking a pay cut and starting again, right? So one of the advice that I want to share with you, which is from Sheryl Sandberg from Lean In, is that when you're looking for your next opportunity, and most people do that, they get to a level, okay, like me, right? I'm like director level. Then if I want to look for a new job, must be director level also. Because if I become manager, then, everybody, like, very paiseh lah, like, malu, like, hey, what happened? This person cannot make it or what, right? So then you want to find a job that is equal and parity to your current job. But those opportunities become less and less, maybe because your skills are less and less required, right? So one of the things that Sheryl Sandberg said, which is very important, is to look at the trajectory, right? So if I were to stay in my current role, how far can I go, right? Maybe I can become assistant CEO, right? Or for example. But if I were to take a step down to another industry, like take manager, but actually I can go much further than that. I can become CEO or something like that, right? So when you think about the opportunity that is to come, don't get trapped by the immediate payoffs. You must look at the long-term game. If I were to switch, what is the trajectory for me there? So for example, if you were to go into a smaller organization, like a startup, right? Maybe make less money, maybe in a lower position job, but maybe the startup can conquer the world, right? Become your next Facebook or Google. Then actually your world becomes bigger and the opportunity becomes bigger for you. So it's very important not to get trapped. And I'm telling you this as a middle-aged woman. It's very difficult once you get to a certain level of maintaining your family and having a life that it's very difficult to make these decisions. So that's one thing that I hope you remember. And as a young person now, maybe with less burden. Some of you might have some responsibilities and burdens, I totally understand, but if you have less, this is the time to try and explore and take the risks, because it gets more and more difficult as you get older lah. You become more comfortable. Yeah. Okay, that was my last slide. Any questions? I had a, and if you all want to go for lunch already, also can, but if you have any questions, for those of you on Zoom, I have this Menti QR code here as well. Any questions? Yeah, shall we switch to the Menti? Oh, you had a question about the public sector, right? Can you say that again?
I was just curious about how dynamic the public sector is, especially because it might seem to be, very bureaucratic, very administrative. So how dynamic is the public sector actually, and are there a lot of growth opportunities there?
So I've been a career public sector officer. I've been around for 17 years in the public sector. I think the public sector has development opportunities. It's a great place to learn. So if there's any place in Singapore where there is a strong investment on your learning and development, it is in the public service. It is such a priority that even in downturns, you don't see organizations tailing back their learning investment. I don't think it's as dynamic as the private sector because there are certain rules and processes that we have to follow to make sure that we are accountable, right, to the public. So how I spend my money, like, that's a very big pain point. Like, for us to buy something, the procurement process is very tough. It's very challenging, whereas in other sectors, you can just go and buy, right, decide. But we have a lot of processes because we need to make sure at every stage that is the best value of money because we're using public taxpayer money. I think if you want to join the public sector, it must be because your drive or your passion is serving Singapore and Singapore's interest, right? So if you are interested in climate change and sustainability and you want to help drive that agenda for Singapore, then Ministry of Environment is a great place to do that from a systems point of view. But you could, like, if you want to shift the policy, but you could also do that as an entrepreneur, right? You could join a startup, do a startup that looks at environmental solutions. But I think it comes from this drive of really serving Singapore and Singaporeans. I think that's the only reason why people stay so long, is that clarity of mission and purpose. Yeah, but we're a great organization. And you know, we're very open now, so you can come in and it's very normal that after 2 or 3 years then people leave and they come in again at a mid-career level, etc. Yeah. Okay, there are no questions. No, ask me anything. Any questions? No? Okay, then if not, Nasri?
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
there's somebody, anyone? Oh, no, from City.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. Maybe, okay, do not have. If you do have, you can just drop it on the menti.com. There you go.
Are you, sorry, this question back to, why does it seem that I'm just right? You are writing as in, as a citizen, you are writing emails? Did whoever asked that question want to speak up? Oh, but we can't hear them, right? Or chat in the
yeah, put it on the chat.
In the chat. Are you asking as a civil servant, like a public officer, or from a citizen point of view?
Back to public service, why does it seem that I'm just writing? Okay.
Okay, while you do that, I just guess lah. Huh? If you're writing as a citizen, right, the reason why we write many emails is because it's important to for accountability. If I talk to you on the phone, right, you're a citizen and I'm a public officer, and I tell you something, and you understand it wrongly or differently, and I understood what I said differently, or I was trying to tell you something else, but you understood something different, then when it comes back to that misunderstanding, it's difficult for us to explain what happened. So having it always in black and white is a good, convenient way to make sure that you're record keeping lah. Yeah. So you know it's like the NOC saga, right? Like you WhatsApp, then it's like that lah. Like that. Oh, now that's the proof, right? That, you know, she did know that I was going to start this company up or something like that. Yeah, and that's why the emails lah. Yeah, has to do with organizational bureaucracy. There was no explanation to that on the chat, yeah?
Not yet. I think my colleague Zaiza is trying to check with the participant who asked the question.
Yeah. Then if you are a public officer, actually that's your main mode of communication is email. Also because you need to keep all the people involved updated lah on what's going on, because the machinery is quite big, right? And yeah, so email is the best way to keep people copied and to forward people stuff lah. Yeah.